Cody Schrader was a walk-on, and he became a first-team All-SEC running back, and he's looked pretty good to me in this camp. But what's he looking like to you?
I am happy with Cody, but I expected to feel that way, and I'm happy that you see it and feel that way. So we have great expectations for Cody.
How involved were you with the scouting process of Cody bringing him in the first place?
I was definitely in the hunt, and I definitely was involved.
How important are the preseason games for evaluation for your position? Just because you're not tackling live to the ground in practice, but you're going to get to see running backs actually try to break some tackles. Is that a big eval point?
That's huge. That's huge. Practicing in pads and then obviously game experience. They can do it in the classroom and without the pads, even though we're practicing fast assignments, etc. But with the pads on for a running back, it's a must. So that's going to be huge, not only for Cody, but for all of our running backs that will be involved in playing in the preseason games.
One of the things Jordan was talking about was how I sit next to Christian McCaffrey every day, and I ask him so many questions. I think he's going to tell me to shut up at some point. But how big is that to have that guy in the room, the way he works, and to have not just Jordan but the rest of the backs sort of fall into that?
That's priceless. But I expect that. I love our room. Obviously, Christian is unbelievable. Not only football, he is a football player, but I mean his personality, his character, and he still wants to be the best. Okay, so he's looking to improve every day. Every day he's taking notes. I mean, he writes down notes. So not only is he listening, okay, but he also writes down. And writing crystallizes your thinking. Okay, we all learn differently. And yes, Jordan sits next to him. And one of the areas, not only one area, but when I talk to Jordan man to man, how can we get better? How can we improve? How can you improve? Okay, and he used Christian because Christian is a complete ball player. It means he can do everything, not only with the ball in his hands, without the ball, faking, blocking, all of that's a must. Okay, that's being a pro, and that's the area that we talked about earlier about Jordan needing to improve, and I wanted him to improve in that area. So yes, he does watch.
When you have a young player who doesn't quite understand what it takes to be a pro, how much can you do to help him grow, and how much does it just have to be within him?
I'm sorry, repeat that again, please?
When you have a young player who doesn't understand what it takes to be a pro, how much can you do as a coach to help him grow, and how much does he have to understand it within himself? How much does he have to figure out on his own?
Well, number one is being real and being truthful with the player. So many times, and the game's faster, but everyone's different. Everyone learns different. But number one is for me is just being real and letting the player know what's expected of him and what I expect of him. And then the rest of it is now he has to jump in there and attitude. Okay, he needs to want to change. Okay, because I can demand it and talk to him about it daily. But until he is willing to change, and when we talk about Jordan, that was the deal. He was willing to change later to get better results.
Is there a ceiling for a guy like Christian McCaffrey?
No, I don't believe in putting a ceiling. I always say, don't put a lid on my container. I'm never putting a lid on Christian McCaffrey.
I mean, he's so multi-purpose. I mean, he can block, he can run, he can pass. I mean, what other players have you worked with that are that complete?
Well, I won't mention names there, but the bottom line, since we're talking about him, he's the perfect example, and he's the one that I'm working with now. And fortunately, I'm still doing it. And you dream of, I have anyway, dreamed and wanted. You have a few of those guys they're complete, okay, and it's their attitude, it's the love of the game. So many people talk about loving the game and they want to play it, but they don't want to do all of the other things, so not only has he gotten there, he wants to stay there.
How valuable is it for you to have a guy who can do all of that, leading by example in your room?
Priceless, okay, because he does it. And he shows up. Every day he shows up, and every day showing up meaning, he's in there. but so many people are in there. But where are their minds? Where are their heart? So physically they're there, but he is there in every aspect of it. And I mentioned earlier, he's continually, takes notes. When I get up to show, when I get up closer to the front of the room, okay, rather than being in the back with the remote, with the clicker in my hand, etc. Okay, every day he has his pages, his notebooks are complete and full because he writes down everything that you say.
Patrick Willis just got to the Hall of Fame, and so many people have talked about how his energy spread throughout the entire locker room, through the defense, and on the offense as well. Is Christian McCaffrey's kind of energy similar to that?
Contagious. Okay, it's like a fever, and that's what I want. I want that. Okay, we want that. As a coaching staff, but personally, I love that part. Okay, it's like a fever, and I want it to spread. I want it to become contagious. The same way I talk to him about myself as a coach. Okay, I love it. I have a passion for it, and hopefully my players can feel that.
Jordan Mason said he invested in a jugs machine during the off season. Have you seen how that has affected his ability to catch the ball?
Yes, it's another area that he wanted to become more complete. So hey coach, I'm a runner, is this and this and that, but how can I get better? Okay, because I will ask the players, I'll ask each one, hey, what areas do you want to improve? What areas can I help you improve on? And then that was an area, and then he took it from there. And when he showed back up, you can definitely see it.
With Josh Dobbs, the stuff he went through last year, just hopping in a team, as a guy who played quarterback in the NFL, how do you explain the ability to come in?
I can't explain that. I can't explain what he did last year. Like I never experienced that in my career. I know that it can be a little bit more transient now with what happens in preseason and injuries and that. But I cannot imagine going through what Josh went through last year and being able to go out and perform and play like that under those circumstances, and to come in the week of and be able to go out there and perform. It's just credit to him. I mean, you guys probably have talked to him. There's no secret as to how smart he is and how he can consume and assimilate information and be able to process. And so we're really fortunate to have him, excited about him.
How have you seen that, his ability to learn? Obviously, he was on the fly, but now having the full offseason with him, how have you seen him sort of acclimate to what you guys do?
He's been great. I mean, the biggest thing for him is I think he's been in 4 different offenses now in 1 year. So there's a lot of terminology that floats around, and so to be able to see it the way that we want him to see it, to have the timing down and the precision with which we try to operate from our position on offense, that takes time for anybody to get used to. It doesn't matter how smart you are. That's an instinct, it's a feel, and it takes time. And not to mention that, as you get back into training camp, everybody's rusty, and coaches included. So, but he's doing a great job in knowing what to do, calling the plays in the huddle, getting the ball in the right spot, and he's competing.
The guy's got the mobility that he has. Is it harder to evaluate him sometimes in practice than maybe in preseason games? Because extended plays and things like that is a little harder to see with you? Or
I don't think so. I mean, I think there's a lot to evaluate. You could say the same about Brock. Brock's a different player when you get into a game and he gets flushed out of a pocket and he's creative. But we've seen what Josh has done on tape, and understand kind of how he can extend plays and take that into account.
From last year's training camp to now, is there a certain area of Brock's game that really stands out to you where he's improved the most?
No, man, it's completely different. Last year, I was just hoping that he was going to be healthy, and we were taking whatever reps we could get. We were on a pitch count, and so every single period we had a certain number of throws, including warm-ups. So it's so nice this year to not, first of all, be dealing with that, and then second, that if we need to push a little bit in a practice to work on something, or to take 5 extra reps after a period during a special teams period, we can do that. Post practice, he can get out there and throw on the move and do some. Like, it's completely different.
I've been I've covered teams where the fourth quarterback doesn't get any reps in practices or even in the preseason games. What's your philosophy on that, and what has allowed Tanner to get a few here and there in the last few practices?
Yeah, I don't know, Matt, that I have a philosophy on it. I just think that Tanner came here right after the draft, and he's worked hard, and he's put a lot of time and energy into learning the offense and getting in shape and being in a position to go out there and show what he can do. And I'm just a believer that if you're here and you work and you put the effort in, you should have an opportunity to show what you can do, whether that's 2 reps in a practice or 5 reps. That's probably going to be the max. So I'm always an advocate for giving guys that are here, that are putting the time in, the opportunity to show what they can do, because I think he's the only one on the team that potentially wouldn't be able to do that if we didn't give him any reps. So I'm glad that he's getting this shot, and there's enough reps to go around.
Yeah, especially those longer practices.
Yeah.
He's played, in a lot of different systems in college. I mean, was there anything similar to what you guys do? I mean, what was his sort of readiness coming in?
No. There was
Totally
nothing.
different.
Yeah. Which I would say is 95% of quarterbacks coming out.
There's such a heavy emphasis placed on measurables, particularly when guys are coming out in the draft. And then you have a guy like Brock who comes in and is able to succeed. He may not have measurables that jump out in comparison to some of the other guys reviewed as elite, but the production is there. Do you think that there is an overemphasis on measurables, and is there something specific about Brock's game that you think allowed him to come in and have that floor right away, despite not being the biggest guy or maybe having the strongest arm?
Yeah, I'm not, honestly, I don't know how everybody else does it. The emphasis that they put on certain metrics. Obviously, you have to have an ability to throw the ball, to be accurate, to move. Some of the things that are non-negotiables. I probably prioritize some of those differently. When I looked at Brock and people say there weren't measurables, I disagree. I think there were a lot of really good measurables that mattered to us. The amount of snaps that he played, the way that he played in big games, the way he played in big moments, decisions, being able to process, the ability to extend, the accuracy. There's a lot of measurables there that were pretty clear on the tape that we really liked.
Gone from 4 exhibition games when you played to 3 now, and talk about going down to 2 if they go to an 18-game season. What would we lost as a coach? What would we lost of not having the opportunity for guys to play an exhibition game, younger guys, or to have the opportunity to play an exhibition game? What would we lost?
I think obviously the guys that are competing to make the team. I think that those are reps like we were talking about Tanner. Brock get a very limited amount of reps in the preseason, if any, and so then you have 2 backups who are veteran guys. You kind of know who they are. They're going to go out there and they're going to play and they're going to compete. But it's the back end of the roster that wouldn't get those opportunities to show what they can do. If you cut from 3 games to 2, I don't know how much of a difference that's really going to make. As a former player, to be talking about now adding those games on the back end of the regular season that's a whole different ballgame.
Coach, Brock obviously is the starting quarterback
Is
of this
he?
team.
I don't know.
Wait, I think it's safe to say. Is the rest of the thing solid, or is it fluid? Like if Tanner Mordecai came out in the preseason and played awesome, could he be the number 2 quarterback, or is that not a possibility?
You never know what's going to happen, but I feel really good about the 2 guys that we have competing for the backup job. Veteran guys that have been there. We've got a veteran team that has designs on winning a championship, right? And so you need to have security at that position.
So heading into year 3 now for Brock, you worked closely with him the last couple of years. What is it about his just like day-to-day that leads guys to gravitate towards him? Because he was able to get so many veteran guys to buy in right away. Obviously the play on the field helps with that, but it seems like when you talk to a lot of players on the team, they just talk about the intrinsic leadership qualities he has. Is that something that stood out to the coaches right away, and is that something that you can kind of get a sense for in meetings and preparation day-to-day?
I think he noticed it right away when he came in as a rookie. I mean, just the way he approaches each day as a new day, he just puts in the work. Very, very low maintenance in terms of having to make sure he's on it. He is studying. He's prepared. You don't have to worry about that with Brock. But I think the other thing that makes him, very special intrinsically is that Brock wants to be coached. He wants to be told where he can get better. He wants to be told, hey, how can I fix this? How can I fix that? And then he's going to go try to do it. And he's very open to the truth. He's very open to being told where he can grow. And I think that's what makes him just a special guy, and that's his leadership quality.
And so, last year, obviously, he had the pitch count. He was working on a little bit more of a restricted basis during training camp. Are you noticing, just from a pure physical standpoint, like is the ball coming out a little bit more zip this year? Is he looking more comfortable just day-to-day throwing?
I don't notice the arm. I thought his arm looked good last year in camp. He was on a pitch count. Everyone was kind of focusing on it, but I thought his arm looked good last year. I think his arm looks great now. It's nice to not have to worry about the pitch count, and you can do everything. I think Brock's looked great. I think he's working his butt off. I just know he's full steam ahead.
And how difficult is it for a guy like that wants to be coached up and wants to put in the work? How hard was it last year to kind of put the restrictor plates on him a bit and be like, we have to limit you to this? Was that a challenge for you guys at all?
It was almost more of a pragmatic challenge of just the schedule. Okay, here's your practice. How many reps does Brock get? Okay, how many of these are passes? Which ones do you want him to get? There was the semantics of it was challenging, but I think Brock did a good job of being patient and trusting us, and he knew when we said, hey, no more, he was done, and he trusted us, and he trusted our medical people, so, he was good.
And so for the two new guys coming in, you have Tanner Mordecai and you have Josh Dobbs. What's the biggest challenge that you would say quarterbacks typically face as they're getting accustomed to the system, learning the playbook and stuff like that?
It's just learning an offense, learning a language. That's really what it is. Every offense in this league has similarities, but has a lot of differences. I think you got to learn the language first, and then I think understanding the emphasis we put on footwork and how we tie footwork to every play. It's challenging, but those guys have done a great job. And Josh stepped in and he's picked it up. He's super smart. Tanner, limited reps, but he's studying, he's preparing, and he's ready for those moments. He's been ready when he's gotten his reps. So, it's challenging, but those guys have really, really stepped up.
Ricky mentioned that Brandon has been a big resource for him. Their connection obviously goes back to ASU, but has Brandon been just as active in the meeting room as prior?
He's been good. He's been good. He's been sitting in the meeting room. He's been active. He's been talking. And that's in the meeting room. Obviously I know they communicate more in the locker room itself. We only get 45 minutes to an hour in there, so I can't have those guys talking all over the place. But they do a great job staying in communication and being hands-on with each other. Because this is a team thing. At the end of the day, right? We all want the best for one another. And like I say, Brandon has been here, Debo has been here, JJ has been here. So those guys are open to giving out the information to the newer guys.
What's the biggest area of improvement you've seen with Danny Gray over the last year or so?
Yeah, Danny has been he has been working. He has been doing a good job of trying to use your speed and playing fast. And one thing that Danny has done awesome at is being able to move around the field, not only play one position. He has learned the offense in and out, and he's been doing awesome for me, being that I can put him, at the Z, at the F, or at the X, without him having many mistakes at it, so he's been good there,
Conley seems to, he's been a vet, but it seems that he's really come into really good rapport with Purdy. Seems like a very prototypical X. How have you viewed his progression within the system, especially now that Brandon's not around and he's playing that role?
Chris is the ultimate professional. He comes to work every day. He busts his tail. He's a guy that I trust through and through. And he does an awesome job for us. I enjoy it, and I love him being around. Because of that work ethic, that mentality to come in and be the same every single day. He made a ton of plays for us last year, even after, not dressing the first few weeks of the season. So just that consistency in which he plays with, which he shows up with, it earns a lot of trust from us.
One thing people don't talk much about in the Super Bowl because of how it ended was the work that he did as a gunner in the Super Bowl. Yeah. How much does the receiving room notice and then talk about one of their own making huge plays like that on special teams?
All of us, we see it. Any chance that we get, especially one of our own, in the room, doing something special on the field, you know, we all praise him, you know, because he's not only doing that for himself, he's doing that for the team. You know, so anytime you get a guy that's going to put it all out on the line for the team, you know, you always got to praise him, man. So all of the guys talked about it. You know, we saw it in the moment, and we see it every single day. You know, every day, right? Chris is one of the guys, if not the guy, every single day who runs the most yardage on the field. You know, and the only thing I look at it and I point out to my younger guys, look what Chris is doing. Chris is in year 10. You know, look what he's doing. You know, we all should be the same way.
So that's like the little chips that
that's
track,
the chips.
yeah.
That's the chips that tracks it. You know, whether he's finishing with the ball in his hand, whether he's finishing downfield trying to get a big block, you know, whether it's on special teams. But every single day, if I look at that chart, I know it's Chris that's going to have the most yardage.
Top team or top in your group?
In my group.
In your group. Okay.
In my group.
Nice.
In my group. Yes.
Do you know like how much on a really active day he can run in practice?
Yeah, it's about 3,700 yards.
Wow.
You know, I've seen it get up to about 4,100. You know, so it's very active there. So it's impressive.
There's really no place for players to hide these days with all these metrics.
Correct. You know, even with that and the speeds as well, man, it's something that I genuinely love to look at every single day. You know, because I push my guys to compete with being the fastest on the field. You know, because anytime we can be the fastest, right, we threaten those defenders. You know, so I push those guys, man, and it's something that I use, you know, a lot.
How much are those metrics changing just the evaluation process, and are some of the more traditional measurables kind of going by the wayside a bit now that you have the GPS data?
Yeah, I don't know how much it's changing, you know, but what I do, it gives us a grasp of what to expect when we work out guys, like we put it on the guys as well, you know, because we want to see who's moving around at a good pace, you know. So we use it, but also we trust the eyes as well, you know. So it gives you a little bit added, you know, help, but I don't know how much, you know.
Given your experience in the league and, you know, playing the position, what's the most difficult obstacle that somebody like Brandon might face, you know, missing the first couple weeks of camp? Like, what's the hardest part about staying in football shape when you're not actively in practice?
Yeah, the reps, you know, going against defenders, you know, because of course you don't want to be too far away from it. You know, the more reps you can get, you know, especially when you've been out of it for a extended period of time since the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. You know, going up, you can't get those reps back when you go up against defenders. You know, it takes us some time to get our legs underneath us, being that we run a lot. You know, and really, day after day, that starts to get better. You know, the more you compete with guys, the more you are able to get a feel for, you know, the techniques of receivers, DBs and things like that. You know, it helps.
And for a guy like Pearsall, you know, coming in, he's going up against guys like Demo and, you know, Mooney, who are exceptional corners. Even if he has a day in practice where maybe he's not getting, you know, great results or production, how much is that going to help him in the long run, just having those reps against those guys day in, day out?
It does. Like Pearsall, he gets very frustrated when he don't win a rep. Mm-hmm. You know, I told him last night, I said, listen, it's not about winning that rep. You know, it's about learning from it. You know, because us taking that reps is giving us that experience to know how to attack it and know how to defeat it in the next time around. You know, so I let them know, don't get frustrated. You know, because guess what? We're going to come in here, we're going to have a plan, we're going to attack the plan to go back out the next day and to defeat it. You know, and that's what it comes down to. It's about going out the next day and being better than the day before. You know, so he's doing an awesome job right now. You know, I'm impressed where he's at. You know, he's going to only continue to get better.
Who he is, but you've got some younger guys in there that seem to be making an impact in camp. Braden Willis and Eric Saubert and Chris Forster talked about how they really used you this past
Yeah, it's an exciting group to work with. Obviously, a lot of new faces, and they're kind of equal in terms of the reps they're getting right now. So it's been a fun competition this first 2 weeks, and I'm excited to see how it plays out over the next 3.
I mean, how challenging is it now? You've got Trent Williams isn't there right now, so to get those guys kind of working with the guys that are there, I mean, there's been injuries on the offensive line. How challenging has it been to get those guys to really kind of work in there?
It is challenging. It's you know, communication is such a big part of what we do, and guys get used to communicating with the people that are usually there. And when you're in this time of the year and people are constantly rotating, it's definitely a challenge. but those guys have kind of taken ownership of it, and especially it's interesting because younger guys usually are kind of afraid to like say, hey, what are we doing, or communicate, and they've done a good job of, like I said, taking ownership of that and doing the best they can with it.
George has been taking a little extra time, like after practice, to not even only work on the sled, but just to work on blocking with the guys. How valuable is it to have a guy who does that in your group?
It's extremely valuable. I mean, he's almost like an assistant coach. I mean, he really is tremendous in terms of just being a veteran, and like really, he genuinely wants those guys to be the best version of themselves that they can possibly be, and he spends a lot of time trying to help them get there.
Okay, George.
Yeah.
What else can he do to up his game going into this year?
There's little things. I mean, and it's when you're playing at such a high level, obviously you get better in smaller and smaller increments. And so we've identified a few things, just like little details about his route running, his blocking, hand placement, little technique issues that we're trying to identify and focus on as we work through drills and team reps. And I mean, he's all about it. He wants to be, the best football player he can possibly be. So it's fun to be able to have those conversations and see him take it to practice.
We've seen his dad out of there on the field, somewhat involved, somewhat not involved.
Yeah, he's around. He just kind of shows up from time to time. It's he's always fun to talk to, though.
What's Eric Saubert been like? It seems like he came in with very little fanfare, but has potentially a big role on this team.
Yeah, I'm excited. Honestly, the film that was out there on Eric, he's a better player in person than I was able to see on film, and that's not a knock on him. It's just like the reps that he had and what he was being asked to do. And so when we got him here and I was able to work with him in the off season, I quickly got very excited about what his skill set actually was and what the vision would be for him fitting into the offense. And so we've been able to get him up to speed really quickly. He had the benefit of playing in Miami and Houston, which is obviously very similar terminology from the lineage, and he's picked it up really quick and been able to really. I'm excited about working with him. He's doing really well.
Was there a question about what kind of blocker he was just because of the opportunities he had? I mean, was that the sort of the missing piece in your mind about him?
There was definitely, I think, some room for improvement there, but it's not necessarily a knock on. It's just different with the way we teach things, and the way we try to execute things are a little bit different than how he was being taught in other places. And so there's always a question of, how quickly people can adapt, and he's done it really well.
Do you go back to the college film with him and?
I didn't look up the Drake film, unfortunately, but I did look at a couple different teams just to see how he was playing in different schemes to Denver and then Miami and then Houston, and there was I saw enough that I liked to be excited about having him here.
How do you kind of evaluate that aspect when you're really not supposed to be driving guys into the ground and doing the really feisty things that you want him to do on Sundays?
Right. Each rep is extremely valuable, and he knows that. All the guys know that you might only get one or two chances at this, but it's not to be taken lightly. I need to see what your best version of this technique is when we get these opportunities, and because it might be you might go 2 weeks without blocking a defensive end in a game, and then all of a sudden you need to do it in a critical situation, and I need to be able to see that you can rise to the occasion.
And what about Latu? Where is he right now? And he just seems more comfortable than he was a year ago.
Yeah, he's definitely more comfortable. He had the benefit of being here, and he was in meetings all last year, even though he wasn't able to do anything on the field. And so he has a much better understanding of the offense and what we're asking him to do. And I think he's a lot more comfortable and relaxed and able to go out there and perform.